Good afternoon. It's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology, talking about all things security. So it's our SMESec, all delivered in plain English, not Klingon. So we're talking about security, and we've been going through the National Cybersecurity Centres, which is a UK or governmental body, and they help organisations protect against cybersecurity threats. So stopping you get into a situation where you're ransomware or you have data stolen or other types of issue that could be you know ended up in your lap from hackers, either domestic or international, and some of them do it for money, some for doing for other reasons. So we've got to make sure that you understand how to deal with this. And the National Cyber Security Centre came out with a 10-step process, and it's in line with some of the thinking from NIST in the US, which is the National Institute for Standards and Technology, and their program around a framework that gives you, the prevention, detection, and many other things in that framework, which we've done recently. But we're going to come back to next week and do a refresher after we've completed the 10 steps, which today is step 9. So let's bring up the actual slides. So we've covered so far information risk regime, secure configuration, network security, manage user privileges, user education awareness, incident management, and we also talked about monitoring yesterday. So today's all about removable media and controlling movable media. And it's going to be a short one today, because normally we've been running up to 15, 16 minutes, because there's quite a bit to talk about in each of the areas, especially yesterday when we were talking about monitoring. There's quite a bit to talk about. Today, not as much, but there's a few things to consider about removable media and how you control it. So firstly, let's talk about the positives of removable media. So we can get USB keys, USB-based disk drives and things that help us do things like, do backup and recovery. It also gives us ability to archive files and things. So we can store large amounts of data on these devices, and also we can utilize them to move that information between places as well. So using a USB key, dump a load of documents we want and move them somewhere else by removing it, plugging it in somewhere else, and off we go. So there are some really good things that USB devices give us. The downside is another story. So one of the problems is commonly we would encrypt part of our secure configuration, all of our files that sit within our disk drive, within our desktop or laptop computer. And we do that to ensure that anybody remove those disks, they couldn't get to the data itself. It was only available through the applications and through the user. And every time we actually access those particular files, they were decrypted for our use. And then when we save them back, they were re-encrypted, so no one could get access to them. And it's quite a critical thing we do to protect all of the integrity of the data that we have. If we're using USB devices, commonly they're not encrypted. So the data that resides on them is open for anyone to access. So if someone does take control of our computer and we are vulnerable to attack, once they've actually compromised our access to it, they can access anything that's on those USB devices quite easily. So that's one thing. That data could be either deleted, removed, brought back to themselves to utilize if it was, say, customer data, credit card information. Hopefully you wouldn't store that on your USB devices, but there's a potential. So there's all these issues that if our machine was compromised, that they can access the data that's stored on those USB devices quite easily. The second thing is they can be actually utilized as a persistent method to actually restore malware. So what the hackers can do is they can actually write the files that they want to boot from onto that USB device, and we can actually then lock out the USB device from our antivirus or our EDR platform, so it doesn't read that data. And then what happens every time we reboot, that file is then reloaded from that USB device, and again it's sat there in the background, that malware, and it makes it very persistent, so they can get around our defenses. So that's one challenge with it. The other challenge is a people process. I've just spoken about easy it is to copy data down to these USB devices, unplug it, take it somewhere, and plug it in. What if you've got a disgruntled employee, or you've got an employee who's moving on to work somewhere else, and they decide it'd be really good to take all of your customer data? So they do a data extraction from your CRM, they convert it into some kind of format, say a spreadsheet or a CSV file that they can put onto a USB device, write it to it, and they can take it away with them. You know, that can be a real difficulty. We could end up losing our crown jewels, all the information about all our customers, everything we've sold to them and when we've sold it. And that could be then utilized by this employee when they go and work for our competitor. Um, in theory, our competitors shouldn't accept that information because it's breaching GDPR rules and a number of other things. But again, in a lot of cases, will they care as long as they're getting business? If they can get a new customer, get some more money out of them, why would they worry about it? Especially if there's no evidence of what they've done. But having it so easy to use such a device for your ex-employee or current employee who's leaving soon, is a bit of a challenge for us. So protecting those devices and disabling USB ports is a critical thing. So most of the MDM, mobile device management tools, and also many of the endpoint management technologies like EDR, and also some comments we use some agents to do endpoint monitoring management, and also dealing with patch management. With these tools, we can also set specific configurations to say that USB ports cannot be used unless we enable them for a specific use. So what we should be doing is always having our USB ports that we are not using blocked out so that users can't plug in a USB drive and infect the machine with some kind of virus that's on there accidentally. They can't be used to store data and then accidentally be intentionally be corrupted or stolen from the hacker, or for our disgruntled employee or someone who's moving jobs, stealing our crown jewels, copying the data and put them onto that. So protecting removable media is really important. We need to ensure that any user can't just automatically mount some kind of storage through a USB device and be able to read and write to that data, and also potentially boot from it, if the hacker uses that medium to actually create a persistent mechanism for the malware that they've imported onto the machine. So removable media controls are really important. We need to really consider how you do that. Also, when you're looking at home users, which we'll talk about tomorrow, home users and mobile users, it's even more important because you physically can't see what's happening. In an office, it can be quite obvious when somebody's plugging a USB device in. But if you're actually at home and a home office environment and you don't have monitoring, it'd be very difficult to know whether someone's utilizing a USB device to actually store data, extract data, or even to use it for malware deployment. So really important that you've got some form of control of that remote media, whether that's on a Windows desktop or whether it's on an alternative desktop such as Mac or Linux based platforms as well. So hopefully that's nice and quick for you, just under 10 minutes or 8 minutes. That's the shortest one I've done of these. But tomorrow we're moving on to number 10, which is home and mobile worker policy. So this is going to be a much more in-depth piece. Again, we're going to limit it to 15 minutes, all delivered in English, not Klingon as well. But home workers and mobile workers have become a real challenge. And if you look back over the last 2 years where we've had a large amount of people working from home, it's become a real problem for organizations to manage the security around those users. And also it's become a real issue to manage the IT support around those users as well, because they're not getting the peer support they would have by asking the person sat in the cubicle next to them, how do I do this? Or I've got this pop up, what do I do? They need to actually go always back to their IT support piece, But if the IT support facility doesn't have the right monitoring, management, and remote control tools, it makes it a real challenge to deal with them, and it can actually really reduce productivity. So that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. Home and mobile worker policy, and that'll be at the end of our 10 steps. And then on Friday, what we're going to do is a roundup of them and summarize each one of them and go through some of the areas that we need to really think about. So thank you very much for joining us today. And say it be great to see you tomorrow, 12:30 to 12:45 as normal. Again, home worker and mobile worker policy tomorrow. Thank you very much. Bye.